The New Testament reading this morning is from the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. Now as they went on their way, he entered a certain village, where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to him and asked, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her." This is the word of the Lord.
And let us go to the Lord in prayer. Gracious God, be with us this day as we hear your word, and may we have the courage and strength to live your word now and always. Once upon a time, a man was hired as the new CEO of a factory. He was a bit of a no-nonsense type leader, so he was determined to turn this factory into a thriving business. And one day he looks out onto the factory floor and he sees a man standing around not doing any work. He immediately heads for the factory floor, marches up to this worker and says, "What do you think you're doing?" And the man shrugs and replies, "I'm just hanging around waiting to be paid." The CEO becomes enraged and asks the man what he earns in a month. The man tells him the amount, and the CEO reaches into his wallet, produces that exact amount, hands it to the man, and says, "Consider this your severance packet, now get out." The man takes the money and he leaves. The CEO turns to the other workers and says, "Do you see this, everyone? We are here to work. There will be no tolerance given to lazy people. If you are not here to give your best, it's time for you to go. That is how it's going to be around here from now on." And a rather timid man from the back yells out to the boss, "Sir, that was the pizza delivery man." Sometimes standing around and doing nothing is frowned upon, and sometimes it is exactly what we should be doing. And that is what we are talking about in today's scripture lesson as we tackle the famous and the classic story of Mary and Martha. Jesus came to their house for a meal, and Martha did a lot of chores and a lot of work to make everything just perfect for her guests. Mary decided to spend time with Jesus, listening to him, enjoying his company. Martha finally reaches her breaking point, and in a frustrated tone, she says to Jesus, "Excuse me, don't you care that I'm working my fingers to the bone here? Can you ask Mary to help me?" And Jesus explains to Martha that she is bothered by many things, and in this instance, she could have learned something from Mary's behavior, for Mary had chosen the better way. So my question for us living in this century, in this time, removed from all those years ago, why is this story important? Why was a meal served to Jesus in someone's home pertinent to our lives and our relationship with Christ? Why was Mary's action so helpful? After all, she did just sit there. And what is this passage of Scripture trying to teach us? Well, for one thing, Mary and Martha displayed two very different approaches to caring for someone. Of this passage, William Barclay says, "There's no right or wrong in this. God did not make everyone alike. Both women were serving Christ, and God needs his Marys and his Marthas in this world." Now, last Sunday I said that when we have faith in Christ and put that faith into action, we become the hands, the feet, the voice, and the mind and the heart for God out into this world. And we carry and deliver that message in the way that we live, in the way that we treat others, in the way that we help, and in the way that we treat Christ in our lives. So God needs both the Marys and Marthas of this world to spread that gospel, to spread that message in that way.
Amen.
Thank you. How many times have you wished that you had a Mary by your side? Someone who would listen, would sympathize, would understand, would help you learn from your mistakes, would not offer criticism, but would offer support, would simply be there when you needed it most. How many times have you been grateful that you had a Martha in your corner? Someone with a strong work ethic, with the ability to accomplish tasks, to do the mundane duties, to have the courage to run those committee meetings, to have the mindset to take care of what needs to be done. Someone who had the gifts of knowing how to help and heal and grow all through the act of service. God gives us special talents and abilities, and no one way is better or worse than the other. Both Mary and Martha were serving Jesus and showing him love. The difference here is that what Mary did was what was most helpful to Jesus. It was what he needed in that moment. And that moment's important. Think about what Jesus was going through at this point in his life. He was constantly being asked for help and to perform miracles of healing. He was trying to lay down the foundation for his disciples. He was forever being harassed. He was forever being tested. He was on his way to the cross. He had a mission to fulfill. He was running out of time. And he knew that he had to not just face death, but a death that involved torture. With all of his struggles, he was probably looking for a sense of calm, an inner peace, an opportunity for solace. This is what Mary gave to him, and what Martha tried to give, but could not. This passage teaches us a crucial and fundamental truth. If you want to be kind to someone, you need to try and see into the heart of the person that you are trying to help. Too often we do kind things, but for some reason we have to do them in our own way. And sometimes our way is not the helpful way. What works and helps one person may do the exact opposite for someone else. And so the best way we can help someone is to know them, understand them, be patient with them, and give them what they need. Not what we think will help, but what will actually help them. What Jesus needed in that moment was rest, not activity, peace, not chaos, understanding, not complaining, consideration, not being fussed over. Martha only knew one way to help, but Mary knew Jesus, which meant that she knew what he needed most and was able to help him in a way that made a real difference. Both ways of helping and serving are needed in God's world, but for Jesus in that moment, Mary chose the better way. And now that we understand this, which one are you? Whom do you resonate with? If Jesus was coming to your house, would you act like Mary or Martha? Now, if it was me, standing here all pious and religiously, I would like to say that I would act like Mary, because that apparently is what Jesus needed in that moment. But if I was honest, and if Jesus was coming to my home, I would fly into extreme Martha mode. First, the house would be scrubbed from top to bottom. That includes the upstairs where no one goes, which means all of the beds would be made, and Colin and Lindsay's bedroom doors would be pulled tightly shut. The bathrooms would be given an extra good clean. I would even fold the toilet paper in those little triangles like they do in the fancy hotels. The meal would be my signature dish, and all the elements would be made from scratch. I meant to say elements, but that came out elephants. All of the elements would be made from scratch. I would practice this meal a week ahead of time, making sure that nothing burned, each part of the dish seasoned to perfection, every potential mishap accounted for. I would want to know Jesus' favorite kind of music so that it would be playing when he arrived. His favorite kind of beverage so that it would be chilled waiting for him. His favorite type of appetizer so that the first thing he ate would be something that he loved. And his favorite color so that the tablecloth and the napkins would make him feel right at home. I would want to do all of these things so that Jesus would know how happy I was to have him in my home, and also to show him how much he is loved. I would be Martha because that is part of my personality. I like to play host. I like to have people in my home. I like to take care of their needs to make them feel wanted and appreciated. But I would give it all up, and I would become Mary if that is what he needed. So in reality, the question is not which are you, Mary or Martha, but the question is when are you Mary and Martha? When is it time to act and delve into that life of service? And when is it best to listen and learn and offer a ministry of presence? In order to answer that question, we have to understand, why do we help anyone in the first place? Is it because we are supposed to? Is it the right thing to do? Does it fulfill a need in us? Does it give our own lives meaning? Does it allow us to feel some kind of emptiness? Maybe we do what we do to be kind because we have nothing better to do. And none of these reasons in and of themselves are inappropriate, but when we do what we do and how we live, when that comes from our faith in Christ, then the reasons as to why we help come from a stable basis, a sure footing, and a strong foundation. So above everything else, we need to believe that we help, we serve, we love one another because God is calling us to do so. When in our lives we put God and others ahead of our own desires, we realize that our personal relationship with the living Christ provides us stability and balance. It gives us a notion that there are many ways to help and love one another. It makes us realize that God's Spirit is within us. It makes us realize that we can help others in the exact manner that they need at that moment. With God's help, we can be Mary and or Martha at exactly the right time, in the right moment, and for the right reasons. Knowing this is paramount to our faith, because life is full of adversity and struggles and challenges, crises, whatever you want to call it. And in living a life of faith, we are going to need help, and we are going to need to be a help to one another. Because life is messy. That's the way that it works. So once upon a time, there was a lady who went to her father, and she said, you know, I just don't get it. I'm just having trouble with getting through the daily grind, as they say. Everything seems to not be going my way. I don't seem to be feeling that I'm serving any kind of purpose, that I'm making any kind of difference in my life. And I seem to go from one bad thing to another. As soon as that bad thing is solved, another one is right around the corner, and it just makes it hard to even want to move forward or to know what to do. And her father said, come with me. And they went into the kitchen. He told her to sit down at the kitchen table, and he went over to the stove, and he took 3 big pots, and he filled them with water, and he turned the burners on high, and he stayed in the kitchen until the water in the pots began to boil. And when they began to boil, he put potatoes in one pot, eggs in another, and coffee beans in the third. Good, I got that right. Potato, eggs, and coffee beans. And then he set the kitchen timer for 20 minutes, and he sat down at the kitchen table with his daughter and never said a word. And when the timer went off, he went over to the pots, and he scooped the potatoes in one bowl, and the eggs in the second bowl, and the coffee beans and some of the water in a third bowl. And he said, what do you see? What have I done here? And she said, well, you boil potatoes and eggs and coffee beans. He says, well, that's not what you're looking at. He said, what you're looking at is 3 different ways that the adversities of life affect us. In this case, the adversity is putting these 3 food items into boiling water and how they react. So he said, touch the potato, what do you see? So she touches it, and she says, well, it's what happens when you boil a potato. It's all kind of soft and mushy. He said, and crack the egg open. So she says, if I can't, I have to peel it first. And she did, and she cracked it open. She says, it's all hard boiled. And he said, taste some of the water. And she says, well, it's not water anymore, it's coffee, and it tastes good. And he said, this is how our lives react. When adversity, trials, crisis, emergencies, whatever you call it, when life gets hard, we as human beings are going to act in one of these 3 ways. He says it's not that bad things happen, they're going to happen. The trick is how do you handle it when the bad things happen? You have to ask yourself, are you a potato, are you an egg, or are you coffee beans? If you're a potato, it means that you're a hard, strong individual, but when tragedy strikes, the boiling water in the potato, when adversity hits, the tragedy changes you. It makes you soft. It makes you weaker. It changes who you are. And if you're the egg, you're kind of a nice, maybe even a naive person, and you're kind of soft inside. And then when the difficulties hit, it changes you from the inside out. And it makes you hard and indifferent, and it hardens your heart. But maybe with a little work, you can become the coffee beans. Because did you notice what happened? The water, the adversity, changed the potato, and it changed the egg. But the coffee beans changed the water.
Amen.
And it turned it into something better, and something that was more pleasing. And we all know that we're going to be hit between the eyes with whatever life offers. But we have that opportunity to live those lives with Christ in the center of all that we do. And when we do that, then we'll know when it's time to act like Mary. We'll know when it's time to act like Martha. Because going through life, we are going to need help, and we are going to be in the position where we are going to need to help one another. And with Christ in the center, every time we need that and we need to do that, we can, with Christ's help, we can make that situation better and something that is more pleasing. Let us pray. Gracious God, thank you that you give us these opportunities to serve you, to be with you, and to make things better no matter what comes our way. We ask that you be with us now and always.